Picture yourself standing at the edge of Windsor Castle's grand courtyard. The year is 1580, and the air hums with the weight of secrets. The castle's stone towers rise like silent giants, their shadows stretching across cobblestones polished by centuries of footsteps. To the world, this is the heart of England's monarchy, a place of queens, knights, and glittering feasts. But tonight, we're not here for the royals. We're here for the forgotten, the servants who toiled in the castle's underbelly, their lives a tangle of sweat, sacrifice, and forbidden dreams. Their story is one of whispered rebellions, stolen moments of love, and encounters with forces that made even the bravest tremble. Settle in, because the tale I'm about to tell will pull you into the hidden world of Windsor's unsung souls, where every creak of a floorboard could be a secret and every shadow might hold a ghost. Let's begin in the pre-dawn chill, when the castle is still cloaked in darkness. The year is 1580, and Queen Elizabeth I reigns, her presence filling Windsor with a restless energy. The state apartments glow with candlelight as nobles prepare for a banquet, their laughter echoing through halls lined with tapestries. But beneath these grand rooms, in the labyrinth of damp stone corridors, the servants are already awake. There's Agnes, a scullery maid of 17, her hands raw from scrubbing pots since 4 a.m. Her apron is stained, her back aches, and her only warmth comes from the kitchen's roaring hearth. Beside her, Thomas, a stable boy, hauls buckets of water from the well, his breath fogging in the frosty air. These are the invisible hands that keep Windsor alive, ensuring the queen's gowns are pressed, her horses groomed, and her feasts flawless. Their wages, a meager £2 a year, barely enough for bread. Their lives, a grueling cycle of labor from dawn to midnight, confined to cramped quarters in the castle's bowels. Agnes's day begins in the great kitchen, a cavernous room where the air is thick with the scent of roasting venison and baking bread. The kitchen is a furnace, its massive hearths blazing to feed hundreds of courtiers. She scrubs iron pots until her knuckles bleed, dodging the sharp tongue of Mistress Cook, the head cook, who rules with a wooden spoon and a glare. Thomas, meanwhile, trudges through the stables, mucking out stalls and brushing the queen's prized stallions. Their lives are worlds apart from the opulence above, where Elizabeth dines on swan and sips spiced wine under chandeliers. Yet, Agnes and Thomas share a secret that could cost them everything, a forbidden love, kindled in stolen glances across the courtyard and whispered words in the castle's hidden corners. Their story isn't just one of toil, it's one of defiance. Servants like Agnes and Thomas weren't allowed to marry without permission, a rule enforced to keep them focused on their duties. But love, like a spark in dry tinder, doesn't obey rules. They met one spring evening in the castle's herb garden, where Agnes was sent to gather rosemary for the queen's supper. Thomas, delivering a message to the kitchen, paused to help her, their hands brushing as they reached for the same sprig. From that moment, their fates were entwined. They began meeting in secret, in a forgotten storeroom behind the wine cellar, where the castle's walls seemed to listen. Their whispers were drowned by the clatter of barrels, but the risk was ever present. A single misstep could mean dismissal or worse. Windsor's servants lived under strict hierarchy, their every move watched by overseers loyal to the queen. The steward of the household, a stern man named Master Blackthorn, patrolled the corridors with a ledger, noting every tardy arrival or spilt tray. Punishment was swift, a day without food, a lashing, or banishment to the streets. Yet, the servants found ways to resist. In the dead of night, they gathered in the lower halls, sharing scraps of royal feasts, slivers of pheasant, or crusts of sugared bread, smuggled from the kitchens. These moments were their rebellion, a quiet claim to the life denied them. Agnes, bold despite her youth, organized these gatherings, her laughter a rare light in the gloom. Thomas, quieter but fiercely loyal, stood guard, his ear tuned for the steward's footsteps. But Windsor's underbelly held more than secrets. It held terrors. The servants whispered of things that moved in the dark, things that weren't human. The castle, ancient even in 1580, was said to be alive, its stones soaked with the memories of those who suffered within its walls. Agnes heard the stories from Old Meg, a washerwoman who'd served since Henry VIII's reign. Meg spoke of the night wailer, a spirit that roamed the lower corridors, its cries echoing like a child lost in the void. She claimed it was the ghost of a servant girl punished for stealing a royal brooch and locked in a forgotten cell until she starved. Agnes laughed off the tale, but Thomas wasn't so sure. He'd heard strange noises in the stables, horses stamping when no horses were there, whispers from empty stalls. One night, their secret meetings took a darker turn. In their storeroom hideaway, Agnes and Thomas were sharing a stolen apple when the air grew cold, the candle flickering despite no breeze. A low moan rose from the shadows, not human but not animal, curling around them like smoke. Agnes clutched Thomas's hand, her bravado fading. The moan grew louder, forming words, "Leave or join me." They fled, hearts pounding, vowing never to return to the storeroom. But the incident left a mark. Agnes began noticing things. Her scrubbing brush moved when she turned away, her name whispered in empty rooms. Thomas saw shadows in the stables, shapes that vanished when he blinked. Were they imagining it, or was Windsor's darkness closing in? The servants' lives were shaped by more than ghosts. Their world was one of unseen labor, where every royal whim demanded sacrifice. When Elizabeth hosted a French ambassador, the kitchen staff worked 3 days without sleep, roasting entire boars and crafting sugar sculptures that sparkled like glass. Agnes, tasked with cleaning the Queen's silver, spent hours polishing until her fingers cramped, knowing a single smudge could mean a beating. Thomas, meanwhile, rode messages across Berkshire, his horse galloping through storms to deliver the Queen's sealed letters. Their efforts were invisible, their names unrecorded, yet Windsor's glory depended on them. Their love, though, was a light in the darkness. They carved their initials into a hidden beam in the herb garden, a tiny act of defiance against the castle's rules. They dreamed of a life beyond Windsor, perhaps a cottage in the countryside where they could marry and be free. But dreams were dangerous in a place where loyalty to the crown came first. Master Blackthorn grew suspicious, noticing Agnes's late-night absences and Thomas's lingering glances. One evening, he followed them to the garden, his boots silent on the grass. He didn't catch them, but his eyes narrowed, and the servants felt the noose tightening. The castle's mysteries deepened their fears. Old Meg's tales grew darker, warning of a crimson door in the lower vaults, a sealed chamber no one dared open. She claimed it held the remains of servants who defied the crown, their spirits trapped in eternal torment. One night, driven by curiosity and desperation to escape Blackthorn's scrutiny, Agnes and Thomas ventured to the vaults. The air was thick, the walls slick with damp. They found the crimson door, its wood stained a deep red, as if soaked in blood. A faint scratching came from within, growing louder as they approached. Thomas reached for the rusted handle, but Agnes pulled him back, her voice trembling. Some secrets aren't meant to be opened. They fled, the scratching echoing in their ears. Life grew harder as winter descended. The castle's hearths couldn't warm the servants' quarters, where drafts seeped through cracked walls. Agnes caught a fever, her strength fading as she scrubbed floors. Thomas risked his job to steal broth from the kitchen, slipping it to her in a tin cup. Their love was a quiet rebellion, but it came at a cost. Blackthorn's suspicions hardened into action. He confronted Agnes in the kitchen, his ledger open, accusing her of theft, a crust of bread found in her apron. The punishment was exile, a fate worse than death in a world where a servant's skills meant nothing without a master. Thomas, overhearing, made a desperate choice. He confessed to the theft, claiming the bread was his. Blackthorn, unmoved, banished him instead, ordering him to leave by dawn. That night, Agnes and Thomas met one last time in the herb garden. The moon hung low, casting silver light on their carved initials. They vowed to find each other, no matter the cost. Thomas whispered of a plan to join a merchant in London, promising to send for Agnes when he had enough coin. As they parted, a strange wind stirred, carrying the faint moan they'd heard in the storeroom. Was it the night wailer warning them of their fate? Agnes shivered, clutching Thomas's hand until he slipped into the darkness, his figure swallowed by the castle shadow. Agnes's life without Thomas was a hollow grind. She worked in silence, her spirit dimmed. The other servants noticed a change, not just in her, but in the castle. The night wailer's cries grew louder, heard even in the kitchens. Pots fell from shelves with no one near, and candles snuffed out in still air. Old Meg, now frail, whispered that the castle was angry, sensing the servants' despair. One night, Agnes saw something that chilled her to the bone. While cleaning the queen's chambers, she glimpsed a figure in the mirror, a girl in a tattered apron, her face pale and eyeless, standing behind her. She spun around, but the room was empty. The mirror, polished moments before, was smudged with a single word: run. Terrified, Agnes began planning her escape. She hoarded scraps of food, hiding them in her mattress. She memorized the castle's back exits, mapping a path to London. But Windsor seemed to fight her. Doors she'd used for years were suddenly locked, corridors led to dead ends, and the crimson door scratching followed her dreams. The other servants, sensing her plan, grew distant, fearing Blackthorn's wrath. Only old Meg offered help, slipping her a coin and a warning. The castle keeps what it claims. Agnes didn't understand, but the words clung to her like damp stone. On the night of her escape, a storm raged over Windsor. Lightning cracked, illuminating the castle's towers like accusing fingers. Agnes crept through the lower halls, her heart pounding as she passed the crimson door. The scratching was deafening now, joined by a voice: "Stay or join us." She ran, her bundle of belongings clutched tight, until she reached the herb garden. There, under their carved initials, she found a note from Thomas, smuggled by a traveling peddler. It read, "London, the Red Lion Inn. I wait for you." Tears stung her eyes as she fled into the night, the castle's shadow looming behind her. Did Agnes find Thomas? Some say she reached London, living quietly with Thomas until old age. Others whisper a darker fate, that the castle's spirits claimed her, pulling her back to the crimson door. Old Meg's tales spread among the servants, growing into legend. By the 1600s, the night wailer was said to be Agnes herself, her cries a warning to those who defied Windsor's rules. Even today, staff report hearing sobs in the lower halls or seeing a girl's shadow flit across the kitchen walls. The herb garden, now paved over, is said to hum with unease, as if the castle remembers its lost lovers. So, listener, what would you have done in Agnes's place? Would you have risked everything for love, or stayed in the castle's shadow, safe but chained? The next time you hear a storm, imagine it's Windsor calling, its secrets waiting to be told. Subscribe to our channel, because tomorrow we'll unravel another tale from this ancient fortress, a story of royalty, ghosts, or perhaps another forgotten soul. Leave a comment. Would you dare work in Windsor's haunted halls? Share this story with anyone who loves a mystery, and let's keep the castle's secrets alive. Until next time, watch the shadows. They might be watching you.